Hey everyone, welcome to Reddit Readout. Today we are checking out Malicious Compliance. Story 1. Inflexible employer only giving me 25 cents per km traveled in my personal vehicle, infinite fuel cheat activated. I used to work as a computer technician. My employer was very stubborn during the hiring process and clearly said that I would be using my own vehicle and would be paid no more than 25 cents for each km traveled. Well now, I didn't argue with him at all. I said that that is a fair price and I'm eager to start. What he didn't know was that I had a moped, and that I carried all my tools in my backpack. 25 cents per kilometer traveled would not only cover my work costs, but all of my personal costs too. I went on a lot of mountain drives on the employer's wallet. Speaking of which, I was surprised how pleasant life is when you have infinite kinetic energy. Story 2. Late for work. I learned yesterday that I can only have 6 absences a year, no matter the reason Dr. note or not, but I can have 14 tardies in the same year. Not consciously, I am running late this morning. I could have clocked in 1 to 2 minutes late, but I get the same occurrence whether I am 2 minutes late or 2 hours late. So here I am in my car reading and playing games for a little bit before I clock in. Why do policies encourage bad behavior? Story 3. Spoiler: he did cut the tree. This happened last year. My neighbors have a fairly big tree and have branches hanging over our yard. I know I can't really say anything about it, so I annoyingly collect dead leaves and branches that often fall into my yard. So I had enough and bought a pole saw and sawed off a few until my neighbors excitingly ran up to me and said I can saw the whole tree off so it won't ever grow back. I blankly looked at him hoping he would at least offer money or something, but I basically said I'm only sawing off what's on my side of the property. He kept trying to convince me I will never have to worry about branches if I cut off his whole tree. I kept saying no. He shut up for maybe an hour and then offered me a few skewers he happened to barbecue. This was literally our first time interacting, so it was pretty insulting how much he's sucking up. I declined his food and he got a bit hissy. I saw that there was a lot more branches left for me to saw off, so I thought even more, it actually might be a great idea to saw their whole 20-foot tree. So I gladly went up to the neighbor and said, "You know what? I thought about what you said. I think it is better off I cut down the tree so I don't have to deal with it." Even while taking the skewer he offered me earlier. His smile became bright again as I walked myself around the fence and went to town. Tree timbered down, I went to the neighbor and said, "All right, glad to help. Have to go back to my yard to clean up." He became hesitant and said, "When can you clean my yard up?" "Clean your yard? You only told me to cut down your tree. This isn't my yard. I'm not cleaning this up." He instantly gotten so red and I could tell it's taking him a long while for him to process what now he has to deal with. I took my saw back and even told him it's a rental and have to return it soon. I decided to make this post because this past year, it was left in his yard and wasn't touched. He just hired someone to simply get rid of it. Hasn't spoken to me since and had to say, his skewer tasted really good. Edit. Wow, this blew up. It's legal what I did, it's my yard and I can do whatever I want in it. I will enjoy the other trees that aren't in my property. A different branch ripped off and broke part of my fence and he didn't have to pay for any of it, so it's another good reason to make cut more off. Also, this guy kept bugging me while I was trying to do yard work and it was really annoying. He pretty much said, "Hey, it's okay, you can cut the tree down." Just the audacity. Edit 2, I don't get why people are saying YTA. Of course I know I am. That's why we are posting our petty revenge. Story 4. Upload everything to SharePoint. You got it. A number of years back I worked for a company that was on a company-wide migration of most Office documents to SharePoint. It worked great for things like shared documents/sheets/contracts. But our department worked with large data sets. You can see where this is going. One day the project manager of one of the projects I was on asked me via email to upload everything I had on the project to SharePoint. This is a real pain because there's tons of files, and I'd rather not. Everything? Are you absolutely sure? There's a lot. He was sure. He wanted everything. So everything he got. Many thousands of data files, terabytes worth of stuff. I get a frantic call from IT. It wasn't meant for this. I tell them to talk to the project manager. They ask why and I just forward his email with the instruction to upload everything. Minutes later a company-wide email goes out saying SharePoint is for documents and spreadsheets only. Story 5. I didn't heart your message, okay, I'll heart all of them. Not a serious one, but kind of funny. My girlfriend sent me pictures of how she set up our new apartment while I was at work, and some of them were selfies. I left before she woke up so I told her that she looked cute in the pictures. She replied, yeah, but you didn't heart any of the pictures, we're both iPhone users. I then proceeded to heart every single one of the 16 pictures she sent, and then hearted every message both she and I had sent that day. She said please stop and I hearted that message too. When I got home, she said that she was dying laughing when she got 40+ notifications that I hearted a message, and that she got exactly what she asked for. Story 6. Physics teacher demands we plot the graph as we go despite not knowing the range of values up front. Okay, then would be a shame if we deliberately chose an incorrect scale to make our point. This occurred many years ago at S-level physics in the UK, 16 to 17-year-olds. I can't remember the exact experiment, but it was something like demonstrating the Young's modulus. Basically you are expecting a straight line, until a point whereby the material yields and strains much further than expected by Hooke's law. So we've been asked to get on with the experiment, and like sensible students we are all taking our measurements and noting them down. Then once we have our results and know the highest and lowest value for each axis, we can choose a sensible scale and draw the graph at a suitable size. We also aren't exactly sure where the yield strength is, so don't know how much stress we'll have to apply to demonstrate the experiment. However, midway through our experiment our physics teacher angrily asks us why we aren't plotting any graphs. I explain that we are taking our measurements first so we know what scale to draw the graph at. This is not an acceptable answer. No, apparently we need to draw the graph as we take measurements because this will allow us to spot any errors earlier during the experiment rather than afterwards. This is a bizarre argument in my opinion. Well, you are the teacher, I guess we'll have to comply. So then myself and most of the rest of the class immediately start plotting what data we have, but with clearly not enough space to accompany the entire experiment. Eventually we run into the edge of the paper. Sir, what do you want us to do now? Even angrier than before, he gets some sellotape and another piece of A4 graph paper and tapes it together to double the size of the graph paper, with some choice words including calling us smart Alex, which is fair because we are being deliberately annoying, but it is also unreasonable for us to have correctly guessed the yield strength of a random piece of copper wire before doing the experiment, to adhere to some nonsense idea of plotting a graph by hand as you take measurements. Realizing what is about to happen, most of the class start laughing. Someone else also requests extra graph paper, and then another, and then another. I think pretty much the entire class requests a second bit of paper. Of course 2 pieces of graph paper stuck together isn't enough, we need more. The teacher had to run to supplies to get another set of graph paper, not happily mind you. I think eventually I needed a 2x3 of A4 graph paper stuck together to make my comically large graph, most of the rest of the class with similar results. There were also other issues like our 30 cm rulers not being long enough to draw the Hooke's law part of the graph ECT. Which of course we made the teacher aware of. Eventually the teacher, thoroughly pissed off at this point, is just standing silently at the front of the classroom. I bet you think you are all so funny, don't you? Before storming out the classroom early. Yes sir, we thought we were hilarious and your rule ridiculous as demonstrated. Funnily enough, he dropped it the next time we did an experiment. In the years after this incident many of us went on to get degrees in physics and several of us are practicing scientists. We had a reunion recently where we recounted some of the incidents we had with this particular teacher, including this one. None of us can see any reason why he came up with that particular rule, we can only assume he misinterpreted something on the syllabus, or was just trying to exert control. Edit. Added some context for non-UK users. Story 7. Phishing whistleblowers get ignored for possible phishing. Not the more funny MC, but worth to be told anyway. I work for some years in a big financial institution. As you can guess, our servers are often under cyber attack. So the IT service regularly pushes security updates on our laptops and organizes sensibilization campaigns about data security. One of their pet peeves is to send mass mails inciting employees to click on a link, then to mass mail that it a trap to teach us about phishing. As our greatest experts have learned their job in the time of paper and pencil, it is not an unsound strategy. But by now, there is probably nobody who would still get caught doing something stupid. Yesterday, we received a message from Microsoft asking us to click on a link to access to the new teamwork platform of the institution. Nobody heard about such platform, and we already have more than we need. So nobody clicked the link. Today we received another email from IT service stating that the Microsoft message was not phishing. It seems that their training has been so efficient that the institution as a whole refused the security updates. Personally, I am still not convinced it is not a double phishing. So I will wait some weeks to see how goes. You never know, isn't it? Story 8. Not allowed to go home early. Okay. First of all, I love my manager. I know that's pretty rare, but she works with our schedules and makes an effort to give us what we want to make things easier for us. Now, that isn't always possible, but one thing they had always been pushing for was trying to cut payroll. I'm part-time, working less than full-time hours is better for my schedule than not, it's cheaper to work less than pay for a babysitter. So she'd send us home early if she could. But we got a new staff-level manager, and all of a sudden we needed to help the other departments instead of cutting payroll, and the last time she let us go home early she got in major trouble and they made us clock back in to finish helping for the rest of our scheduled shift. We can't go home early anymore? Sure. Not a problem. Now she schedules us full hours and then changes it in the system during the shift. Sorry, I'm not scheduled 8 hours today, I'm actually 5. Story 9. Come up with a chapter title. Your wish is my command. Not really sure if this belongs here because it wasn't really malicious and not that big of a deal. However, it is just an amusing memory I have from my middle school days. In 8th grade, my English teacher came up with a clever idea for when we started a new book. He decided that, after we had finished reading a chapter, we would all come up with potential chapter names. This book did not have chapter titles. Once they were all submitted, the teacher would read them all and we would all collectively vote about which one was the best one and that would be the unofficial title of the chapter. It was just a fun creative exercise to help break up the otherwise boring process of reading as a class. After we finished chapter 3, we all submitted our chapter titles. There were some pretty clever chapter titles, but the one that stuck out most to me was the fact one student's proposed title was, Chapter 3. There were quite a few laughs in the room, including from yours truly. Part of me kinda wanted to vote for that title but I didn't. If I were the teacher, I would have given that students extra credit for being clever. I wouldn't even be mad that they were being a smartass. A clever smartass is still clever. That's all for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.